Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about two very different books that are absolutely on fire for very different reasons. And one of them is a modern book, and the other one is a vintage book. And I'm going to talk about why it's happening on both these books, at least give you my opinion on what I think. And I'm only going to spend like 5 minutes on each book, so it's going to be a short video. And I look forward to hearing your comments after that. But here's the situation. We've got a modern book, Absolute Batman #1, and we've got a vintage book, DC Super Spectacular #4, which is from the 70s. Bernie Wrightson cover, very vintage, very hard to find. Both of these books have made record sales in the past couple weeks, and for very different reasons. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about Absolute Batman #1. So this book is, I believe, just over a year old. So modern book, 2024. And let me say right at the beginning, before we get too far, I am not a modern book hater by any means. We need modern comic books to be successful if we want this industry and this hobby to continue being successful. So even though my preference is vintage and probably has something to do with, um, my age and, me collecting back when I was a young kid and then getting back into it, after college. So yes, I am big into vintage, as you know, but also every once in a while I'll go pick up a modern book here or there, just randomly, right out of the blue. And I show you guys that stuff in some of the videos that I put together. So, Absolute Batman #1 for the past year has been essentially a $100 book in a 9.8. All right, I'm going to show you some data here in a minute. And if we look at the sales of Absolute Batman #1, you will see on November 30th, so within the past week, this book sold for $401, and everything around it was like pretty much anywhere from $350 to $400. But that one sale November 30th, $401. Now, if we go back and look at the past year, if I scroll all the way down, and this is the 9.8, look how many 9.8s. So at the beginning of the year, this book was, $90 to $100, constantly. Go all the way through. You go all the way through January. Yes, it's just the January data. Still, get into February, you're still seeing $100, a little bit lower, a little bit higher. Same in March, same in April. I'm fast forwarding now. And it's not until you get into the October time frame when everything is constantly over $100, and then you see a $200 sale here or there, then constantly at $200, and then by the time you get to that third week in November, it explodes and it gets up to $300, and then you have that $401 sale. And when that happened, things were going crazy on Instagram, maybe on Facebook as well. And I know on YouTube, there are many videos that have been put out on this. But why? The question is why? This book is extremely common. Here's the census. You look, total of 3,700 books already graded within a year. 3,400, almost 3,500 of these are 9.8s. That's almost 93% of everything that's been graded on this book has been a 9.8 and counting, right? Pretty soon this thing will be up to 4,000 and then 5,000. I believe the print run on this book was 200,000. So I guarantee you people are going crazy putting these books into CGC and getting 9.8. So you're going to see this number get higher and higher. Okay, so back to the question. Why did it explode? Well, I believe what happened is, first of all, the book is very popular. The storyline, it's really what's driving this book. When that issue #1 came out, and full disclosure, I've not read this book. I have not read it. I'm going to at some point, but apparently the storyline is outstanding. The writing is extremely good, and people are drawn to it. And as you go through the issues, and I think they're up to issue number 15 now, and I believe there was a first appearance, I guess you can call it a big first appearance, in Absolute Joker in issue number 15. I could have this wrong, but as it continued and as issue 15 was coming out and people knew there was going to be a big first appearance, it became even more popular and everybody wanted that first issue. And so prices started going up very quickly. So that's what happened. The question is this sustainable for a modern comic book? So I'm going to give you my answer. But again, when this hit in the 300s and then you had that $400 sale, again, I follow mostly on Instagram and YouTube. I don't do a whole lot on Facebook, but there are some people on Instagram that are really pushing this book. And, some people, I mean, I got to give them credit. They're making posts about, oh my gosh, a new record, another new record. This book was hitting records, right? It seemed like every day a new record was being set on this book for a 9.8. And then when a $400 sale happened, there were a couple people that said, oh my gosh, right, this is great, but be warned, right, this may not be sustainable. And then there were other people posting things saying, oh my gosh, how high could this get? And the answer is most likely that's it. That $401 sale could be the only $400 sale we ever see on that book. And I'm going to show you some more recent data on the sales since then because it's been about a week. But it created some arguments on Instagram. And again, I am not a modern comic book hater, but facts are facts. So there are really two things, most of the time, two things that drive the value of a book. It's either a first appearance of a major character or an epic cover, a cover you just know is going to end up being, just a classic cover, right? And be timeless. Now, my opinion, from what I know, Absolute Batman #1 does not have any major first appearances, not that I know of. And the cover, yeah, the cover's okay, but I don't think anyone's going to call it an epic cover by any means. It's a Nick Dragotta cover. I don't know a lot about Nick, but maybe he does some good work. But as far as I know, it's not an epic cover. If McFarlane had done it or Liefeld or who knows, right? And it doesn't take a really popular artist to create an epic cover. But if one of those people had done it, maybe we'd be talking about something different here. But anyway, bottom line is this book doesn't have any of the major requirements to make it an extremely valuable book with 3,500 9.8s on the census. And again, there are a lot of other books out there that have 3,500 9.8s or more, like Ultimate Fallout #1. I think it has even more than 3,500. But why is it still a $1,000 book? Huge first appearance, right? Yes, it's come way down in value because of the whole COVID thing, like everything else. But that's still a $1,000 book because it's a major first appearance. Regardless of what you think of Miles Morales, major first appearance. And I'm a fan. I like the movies. And, and that book the entire year has been a $1,000 book, give or take $100 here or there. Absolute Batman #1 does not have that. Great storyline. Give it credit for that. I hope to read it someday, but it's not sustainable. It's just not. And this thing will be up to 4,000 and 5,000 9.8s pretty soon without a great cover or a major first appearance going for it. So my opinion is buy it if you love it. I don't have any problems with that. Spend $400, spend $500, spend $1,000, whatever, as long as it makes you happy. But I think we have a responsibility as people that have been in this hobby a long time to warn some of the younger collectors that, yes, spend the money if you have it, and if you want it, great. Be part of the fun. Be part of the madness of a book that's selling, for a record each and every day. But be warned, right? This book does not have what it takes to sustain $300 or $400, let alone more than that. So I think we have a responsibility to tell people that. And that's where I kind of have a little bit of an issue, is that there are some people in the community that are very seasoned, but decide they want to keep pushing this book and not telling people, hey, just so you know, wait a week, wait a month, it's going to be cheaper. And if you want to wait 6 months, it's going to be even cheaper than that. And if you wait a year, it's going to be even cheaper than that. So that's kind of where I take issue with it. But again, sounds like a great book in terms of storyline and writing. So yes, have at it, buy it. But Absolute Batman #1 is not going to sustain $400. And if we look at the most recent data, if we go forward from that $401, you see the next sale was $375, and this was all on November 30th, then $350. And then you see, them drop to, well, they kind of bounce between $350, $375. Then you see a $320 in here. And if you go to the last couple sales on December 5th, $310, and there was even a $300 sale on December 5th. And mark my words, within the next week, I am betting we're going to see sales in the 200s, maybe high 200s, maybe mid 200s, but it's going to happen. There are just way too many, again. And people are going to be sitting on them. And if they want to sell them, they're going to have to lower their price. So it's going to happen. So that's my take on Absolute Batman #1. Great book, it sounds like. But if you want to get it cheap, wait. Just wait, you guys. Don't do it. All right, next on the list. I think I may have gone more than 5 minutes on that. DC Super Spectacular #4. Classic Bernie Wrightson cover, all black cover, front and back. It's kind of the same cover front and back. Very hard to find in high grade. And what has happened recently in the hobby with this book? Well, when you look at three particular grades, the 8.5, the 8.0, and the 7.5, look at these charts. Look at the far right and what the sales have done recently. Just skyrocketing, right? I know that's a very subjective term. What does skyrocketing mean? Well, if we look at the sales, let's just look at each one of them, right? Let's start with the 7.5. Here we go. What happened? So when you look throughout the year, in January, 7.5 is worth $375. May 20th, $368. And then you don't have another sale of a 7.5 until November. And it jumped all the way up to $950. So not quite tripling, but more than doubling. And by the way, this book is very difficult to find in higher grade. And that's why you see some of these higher grades, like anything 7.0 or higher, you're going to start seeing prices like this. The 8.0, what happened with the 8.0? So again, August, $460, September, $528, October, $540, November 18th, $720, and then November 28th, a new record, $1,100. So throughout the entire year, the 8.0 was setting records with each and every sale. So kind of crazy, jumping all the way up to $1,100 for an 8.0. But maybe not. Maybe this book is undervalued, right? And then the 8.5, not quite as crazy of a story, but still set a record. So the March sale set a record for $960 when the previous record was $425. So in March, it more than doubled the previous record. And then in November, $1,336. So almost triple the price that it was from the 2023 sale of $425. So again, those three grades just went crazy. Now, if you look at some other grades below that, so this was all in November. If we go below a 7.5, you look at the 7.0 and the 6.5 right in here, they had October sales that were actually down a little bit. So both of them just under $250. That is not going to last, my opinion. You can find this book in lower grade fairly easily up through a 4.0, 4.5, maybe even a 5.0. But it starts getting more and more rare to find it above that. So I am guessing these 7.0 and 6.5 sales. Remember, this was before the madness because the madness didn't happen until November. But why? Why all of a sudden in November did that happen? Well, I don't have a good answer for you other than a sale. I think Heritage had a sale that ended on November 18th where this 8.0 sold and it went for $720. And I remember I posted it on my Instagram and I said, new record for an 8.0. And people were saying, yeah, it seems like a steal, even though it was selling, in the 4s and 500s for every sale prior to that. But I agree. As we all thought about it, we thought that's kind of a steal for this book. And then 10 days later, the only 8.0 on eBay just went for full price. It was listed for $1,100, sold for $1,100, and that's the one you see right here. So I think there's a little bit of FOMO kicking in on some of these higher grades. Anytime we see something like a 7.0 or above, So I think there was like a little bit of a catalyst when that Heritage sale happened. And I'm pretty sure this 720 was Heritage, right? Let's just double check here. Yeah, it was a Heritage sale. All right. And people were watching that and they start getting a little nervous when that 8.0 went for, even though it was a record price at that time, nobody's sure when they're going to see an 8.0 again. So, and I haven't checked eBay to see what's on there. I know there are a lot of 4s and 5s and maybe some 6s out there. I don't know if there's anything above and beyond that on eBay right now. So, what's my opinion on this? Yeah, I think these prices are sustainable on this very classic vintage book because when you look at the census, so remember the 3,500 9.8s that we saw in Absolute Batman #1. Well, if you look here, 0 9.8s, 4 9.6s, 4 9.4, 7 9.2s, and then, the numbers get a little higher as you get into lower grades. But, it really, the chunk of them are really around, 7.0, 7.5, and then, it starts tailing off after that. But you get into the high grades, very, very few. So as those high grades pop up, and I only know of one person that has a 9.6, and if you're on the Instagram community, you probably know who that is. And it's a beautiful looking book. I don't know the exact price he paid for it when he bought it, but I know it was expensive, but probably worth the money, no matter how much he paid for that, because there are so few. So if you see any of those 9.6s or 9.4s pop up, even 9.2s, it's going to go for crazy amounts of money. It's because they are hard to find, and it's one of the most absolute classic covers that people are looking for, especially being a Bernie Wrightson cover. And that's what I told you at the beginning. It's either got to be a major first appearance or it's got to be a classic cover. So this checks the box for classic cover, absolutely. And it's an iconic cover, right? It's more than just classic or epic. It's iconic. And that's the difference between a book like DC Super Spectacular #4 and Absolute Batman #1. So, what's my message to you? My message is buy what you like. I'm not going to criticize you for spending any amount of money on any book you ever buy. I wouldn't want someone doing that to me. You got to buy what you love, and you've got to be happy with what you buy. But again, I don't want younger people in the community to get a bad taste in their mouth because they go and buy an Absolute Batman #1 for $400, and then a month later they can buy it for $300 or $200, and a year later they're probably going to be able to buy it for $100, and they're going to be mad at the comic book community for pushing it, and they're going to lose trust, they're going to lose faith, and we don't want to drive people away. Right. So that's why I say we have a responsibility to teach people. And at the end of the day, we let them make their own decision. Right. Don't really push them one way or another. Just give them the data, give them the information, and let them go with it. And I think that's what builds the community and keeps people interested. So again, we need modern comic books to be successful. We need those younger people buying modern comics, or even older people buying modern. But we need that young generation to continue to grow within this community if we want it to keep going. Okay. So let me know your thoughts on this, in your opinion. Did I say anything? Did I miss anything in my analysis? I just thought it was an interesting comparison. You can do this with a bunch of different books, but I chose these two books just because they were both really hot for a short period of time at the same time. So thought it was a good comparison. That's it. Hey, we're well into the Christmas season. I hope everyone's enjoying it. Look for some more content coming up between now and Christmas, and I'll tell you about a claim sale I have coming up right after Christmas. We'll get more into that, but until then, have a great day.